Everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today's video is made possible by the EA Creator Network. What's unique today about the video is that unfortunately this is going to be more of a video essay format because I can't show you footage in game yet, but what I'm going to do is we're in season 15 right now, and all this footage in the background I'm going to make reference to what changes are coming to Apex Legends 16. Now on screen is a list of everything we're going to talk about. I'm going to timestamp everything for all of you guys. The class changes adjustments are pretty massive and pretty big, so we're going to cover those first. Then we're going to talk about the R301 and car nerf, the care package adjustments, the Nemesis energy gun, which is going to be brand new, Serum Bloodhound nerf, Horizon nerf, Lifeline and Mirage buff, Pathfinder and Wraith buff, the gold shotgun bolt, TDM, and firing range updates to kind of wrap up, the future of Apex Legends, and of course just my thoughts as a whole. So with that, I do have my notes here. I'm going to do my best not to get anything incorrect. If I do, for some odd reason, which would be kind of strange, I know I made a mistake before, is I'm going to do some amendments on the video. So with that, let's talk about the Assault class. Now currently you'll see the Assault class has like Mirage, Octane, and Wraith. Now the interesting part is that the updated Assault class is going to have Bangalore, it's going to have Revenant, it's going to have Fuse, Ash, and Mad Maggie. So the interesting part about the updated Assault class is that they're going to be able to hold more ammo. So more ammo capacity and with an extra stack. Which is going to be interesting for them because now, like I guess if paired with Loba, they can stack more ammo or they can stack less because they have the extra stack. Now they can maybe hold an extra grenade. And think about their utility more and being the Assault. Another interesting change on the mini-map, you're going to see that the Assault class has access to red bins. That extra red bin has a slot that opens up and gives you attachments. So I know Lifeline had this passive with attachments, and we're going to talk about that change in a little bit and what they've done to that specific class as well as to Lifeline and her, I guess, a quality of life slash buff. Now let's talk about the Skirmisher class next. This class is going to be Pathfinder, Wraith, Mirage, Octane, and we're going to see Horizon and Valkyrie. The interesting part about the Skirmisher class is that they're based more on rotation or getting out of a fight. So Mirage is kind of the only one that kind of fits a little bit of a weird oddball, but at the same time, his goal is to kind of get into a fight, sneak out, get back in, sneak around, bamboozle, and trick you. So the interesting thing about a Skirmisher class is that when a care package comes down, you know how Loba is able to see once it's landed what item is in the care package? When it's in the air, the Skirmisher class is going to be able to tell you what's in the care package. So if you know it's a Kraber, you might actually rotate it well in advance. You might put a zipline, Wraith port towards it, and Valkyrie ult towards it, knowing well in advance it is actually a Kraber and actually worth your time. And if it's not, then you just may not rotate to it and grab it at all. And of course, if somebody grabs it, then you're going to be notified of what was taken from that care package. So pretty sizable, good adjustment overall made to, I guess you could call it the class, and they now have that interesting perk because if a Kraber's in play, you know to really watch out. You don't never know, or take out the team and get it from them, right? You'll know whether to go for a fight or not. Now what's interesting as well for the next class is what you're going to see is Bloodhound, you're going to see Crypto, and you're going to see as well Seer. It took me a second to find Crypto for some reason, I guess I don't play him enough, and Vantage. Now the beacons is where they used to scan for zone before. They no longer do that. Remember Crypto's place in Kings Canyon? For some people who are unaware, maybe newer players, they used to be able to scan the whole map to know where everybody is at. That is what these legends are for. They're going to be able to scan the map and scan where players are at. Now, the players don't move once you scan them, and of course, the downside of this is that, just like Crypto's place, is that a big beacon hits on the map knowing that you hit the beacon, that you're nearby, and they even get a little warning on their screen and it's shown on the mini-map of where you hit the beacon from. So with that, you have to make a decision. Do you want to use this for information on where opponents are left? And maybe you might find that rat. Maybe you find a squad of two. Make an informed decision for rotation in terms of where opponents are at. They still hit the beacons, and that's where that information comes from. Not where zone is, though. Not where zone is. Now, the interesting thing, you know how we talked about the care package for support? Let's talk about who's in support. You'll notice that Gibraltar is going to move from there. So Gibraltar is support, listed as a healing class. You have Lifeline, you have Loba, and of course, you finally have Newcastle. So Newcastle is also moving from the defensive class to support. They can hit extra bins for heals. Now, this is actually going to guarantee you a battery, a cell, something along the lines rather than just the attachment. So there's a nice separation here from the Assault class. And at least when you hit it, at least you know you're going to get some resources out of it. The other interesting change that we see to this class as well, the healing class, is that it's no longer 2, that it's 4, is that let's say, you ever been third party and you had to leave your teammate because you couldn't get their banner and it's timed out and turned gray. The beauty of this class now, and this is something to consider when you're running this class, is that the banner times that you can go to the crafter, especially when crafters spawn later in the game, you can get the beacon or the banner and you can get them back in the game. This is so huge and monumental to get them back even though they were timed out and you thought that they were a lost cause. So running as a support class can be massively beneficial to your team. Now we'll discuss about Lifeline's buff, and it's timestamped as well down below, where we're going to discuss that later. So you're probably wondering, well, who can hit Beacon? Well, that's save the last but not least for the best for last, essentially. Caustic, Watson, and Rampart, and Catalyst. They are going to be the ones that hit for zone. When they hit for zone, they're new consoles that they're going to hit. Now, the interesting part about this is that for competitive, zone information is key. Knowing how to gate, knowing where to position, knowing what to do. It's so important and so vital for your next steps as a, I guess you could say, defensive legend, knowing where to hunker down. You no longer need to rely on a recon legend because they don't do it anymore. Now the controllers do, but only 4 legends do it, which makes it very interesting because, I mean, there's some of the more desirable legends, especially in competitive. So it might make them a lot more viable. That's why I consider this a buff for Watson. I think this is a really interesting change, and honestly, probably a really healthy change in terms of you think of composition. So when you think about these compositions, if you don't run a support, well, then you're not going to be able to craft your friend's banners. If you don't run Recon, you may not be able to tell where everybody's at. You don't run Controller, you're going to miss that beacon information. You don't run Skirmisher, well, not knowing what's in the care package is kind of key, especially if it's a Kraber. Now, for the Assault class, I mean, hitting those bins, getting those early attachments can be really important, especially when you're struggling to find a 3x or a 2x4 or a 2x or maybe a 8 times magnification. Pretty huge adjustments. I think it's really, really exciting and healthy for the game as a whole. Now, what we're going to discuss next. And of course, when this all releases, I promise you I'll cover everything best I can. This, again, we're looking at the prior season, and we're going to discuss what's going forward. Let's discuss what's nerfed essentially for the gun. So the R301 does 1 less damage, so a slight nerf, not the end of the world. When we look at the car SMG, the mag size has been slightly reduced by like 1 bullet. This is when at the start, I believe it was at 19, if I'm not mistaken. So a slight nerf to the mag size, not the end of the world, nothing too crazy. Now the care package. Let's talk about the care package. So what's going out is the Rampage. This is going to be ground loot. And the interesting thing of what's going in is a Hemlock. Now, what makes this so interesting of why this is going into the care package is that the energy gun, I just passed on an accident, is actually going to be the Nemesis Rifle. The Nemesis Rifle is going to be an energy 3-burst rifle that's automatic. So you don't have to keep pressing it like the Hemlock. It's just pretty much a full auto loadout. With it being a full auto loadout, the more you shoot it, so you have a little meter on the bottom right with the Nemesis, so the faster you shoot it, the more bullets that it's able to spray. And it reloads relatively quickly. It doesn't have any barrel stabilizer, doesn't have a turbocharger or anything like that, so it is what you see is what you get, I believe. Now I'm second guessing myself. I probably need to go back and look at some footage. Maybe I'll amend that. I'll put that in the comment section down below. I'm kind of doing this free flowing, and I apologize, but I felt like I really knew all this stuff top of my head. I've been looking at this stuff a lot, so again, let's move on. Seer and Bloodhound. Let's talk about Seer. Seer as a legend has been very, very busted and being able to find opponents. What I find interesting, even as we're looking at the live environment, is that you see this, how fast it sets up, instantly can see if an opponent is there. In Season 16, this is not going to be the case. They're going to nerf this to where it's going to be very faint, and you have to wait for the heartbeat. See how it, like, blips in the center there? You really only get to rely on that, and even then it's very, very slight to where you might miss somebody, and also makes your tactical ability more skill based because it's going to be harder to know if you're going to hit them or not. And as you're slide jumping, it takes a second for your hands to steady to make sure you know where opponents are at. So interesting change that is made to Seer that's going to make the scan meta a little bit more difficult and a little bit more, I don't want to call scan meta skill based, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Now for Bloodhound, even seeing the scans is pretty interesting on live, how long they last. I want to say this has been pretty much cut in half, as well as a timer. It takes a little longer. Now when you use your ultimate, is probably the more interesting things, is that they nerf that as well. So when you get a knock, the reset timer doesn't keep going. You don't get to just keep scanning and pulsing over and over and over again for information. So as we get this back, when you pop your ult, in Season 16, you're going to get a little crow that goes towards the opponents are at. It's kind of a give and take, so they're going to try to give you something, but the bird is really dumb. I'm going to be blunt. And it runs into walls and it collides, but at least it tells you where opponents are at. Now, when you pop your ult as a Bloodhound, you pretty much should already know where an opponent is at. And when you scan, you get the faster scans, but in Season 16, when we're doing our testing, that wasn't the case. The timer still took a really long time. So you need to be more well aware of your scans, and you need to be more well placed. Because the downside, remember, when you scan, they also know where you are at as well. So you need to be smarter about your scans. So scan meta is still kind of quote-unquote presence. Yes, whenever I scan this, I look at the timer and I see that, you know, it literally only lasted for almost what I felt like 1.5 seconds or maybe 2 seconds, and it just went away so quickly. I'm looking forward to the patch notes to know what those variables are, but they definitely lowered dramatically, and so that's very interesting to see. And hopefully scan meta makes the game sense a lot more viable and a lot more important. And we look at the Recon class when we're talking about the class adjustments on maybe even choosing Vantage or Crypto. Maybe this is an overall buff to Crypto, because I mean, when Crypto drones above you, it's pretty much a permanent scan. So maybe in a way this is a buff towards what Crypto can do and provide for the team as a whole. So interesting change. Now, let's talk about Horizon. So this was pretty much released early whenever you popped your Q, that when you're in the air, granted they reverted it back, that you would have 100% accuracy. So whenever you queue up, there's a give and take in here as well. When you queue up, you're going to lose all that accuracy. Even when you're a charge rifle and you're at the very tippy top, you're going to get this like spread, right? So that spread, when they just released it, it looks like a little too early. So now when you go up, there's going to be the spread. Now the buff to Horizon is that you're going to go up the queue much faster. Used for more rotation. So we think the Skirmisher class, we think rotation, get into a fight, you want to fight. And maybe that's going to be the counterbalance there. I think it's a healthy change. At least you got something back in return. Shouldn't be the end of the world, because now you're using the lift what it was designed for, to get your teammates up to height, not to just beam somebody out of nowhere where you just didn't, you know, couldn't hold positioning from. A little unfair. So let's discuss the Lifeline buff. We know that when we discuss the class system, that the passive for supply bins is kind of being taken away from her. The interesting thing about Lifeline is that in Season 16, the passive res is going to be a lot faster. So before, whenever you res, you get slowed down a little bit. But now you can literally super glide and fly into an opponent, and you can slide jump, and you can tap strafe right into the res without... You get a little bit of a slowdown, but it's barely noticeable. Especially whenever you're like tap strafing, move around, you pretty much lose almost no momentum. It's pretty crazy. Now the next change as well we're going to pair is with Mirage. Mirage, whenever you provide a res, will keep you and your opponent cloaked. So that's already kind of a given together. But afterwards, when you res, you get 3 seconds to remain cloaked. So that gets you about 20 meters away after a slide jump. I would say it hits probably around here. And the interesting part about that slide jump as well is whenever you get away is that as long as you do not pull your weapon out, you'll stay cloaked. So staying cloaked is pretty huge, because let's say you both go separate angles and you got the person in the middle just like, oh, where do they go? It's got that added benefit to really keep you guys hidden and give some reset potential there, especially when you're trying to get away and if you're getting third-partied. Another interesting change as well that we're going to cover is going to be the Pathfinder and Wraith adjustments. So we know that Valkyrie is the king when it comes to rotation. What's interesting is that they're both under the Skirmisher class. Now the interesting part about Pathfinder Zip is that, I mean, it's really good, but the downside of it is that you get beamed pretty easily. So let's talk about the fact that you get beamed pretty easily, right? The interesting part is that going from 75 meters, maybe about 100 actually, the max distance, is that you'll be able to go around 200 meters now. So we look at that, we ping all the way over there. We say it's about 100, 105, but give or take, the interesting part is that now with the update is that you'll be able to pretty much go all the way from up here to, still can go a little further. You'll be able to see the blue outline whenever it's live, but you'll be able to go pretty far, there we go, about this distance, which is a pretty dramatic change from that distance there. It gives you more options and ideas for rotation. The same thing for Wraith in terms of rotational ability. Rotation is going to be very important. It gives this power back to Wraith. So essentially from all the way up there, going probably from my testing when I was in the test range, and I'll promise to cover this whenever we do it live, in the live game, is that it was probably around here, which gives you about, let's see, give or take 150 meters. So yep, I was pretty accurate. So about this distance is about how far you get to go with the portal. Keep in mind you still get to use your Q just to kind of pause in case there's somebody gating when using a controller legend, or even just to try to get you out of dodge, and even that movement speed will get you pretty far. So there is that. And in case of, even if you need to go back, you can go back quite a bit of distance, or you can get like, you know, the infamous grab an opponent from the enemy team and like steal them from a mile away, which is pretty cool. So that pretty wraps up those changes. Let's go into the next change now. The next change that they're going to introduce to the game is the gold shotgun bolt. So everyone kind of had a mag. You got the gold mags here, you know, season 15, you got them live, and those don't go away. Those are still in the game. The gold shotgun bolt, pretty much how it works is like the kinetic feeder that's no longer in the game. You don't have to ADS, but when you take a shot, the gold shotgun bolt, when you slide jump, will pretty much give you right away your bullet back. But this makes it for a more aggressive gun, especially for the shotgun. I think even with Mad Maggie, my gosh, that bolt is going to do some work. Slide jumping, going down a hill. I mean, you don't have to ADS anymore. You just do it without thinking, especially with Mad Maggie. This is a great pairing that is going to be very beneficial towards that legend. Now, let's talk about the next change, which is TDM. TDM is a really fun mode, and I'm going to put in the description down below my other video where I'm talking about arenas and sunsetting. But just know that TDM is coming. I think it's really fun, and I'll talk about that mode in the other video. And there's a reason why I'm doing that specifically, because I want to talk about a bit of the future of Apex Legends more in depth in that video. The firing range is next, and when you hit tab in this section, you're going to see customize. What I love about this is a feature that should have been here like, I don't know, 10 seasons ago, or maybe even at launch, is unlimited ammo. You're going to get unlimited ammo in the test range. So, oh my gosh, comment down below if you're hyped. My gosh, when I play tested this and I came back into this archaic way of picking up ammo, I mean, it's still there. You can turn it back the other way, but still. Also, you can change it where target dummies move and strafe in front of you. They can do a crouch. They can do stand, they can stand still, you can change their armors from white to mythic, and as well as these targets in the back, you can set them to crouch, you can set them to walk, you can set them to run, and the beauty with that, you can set them to zipline speed as well. Not these guys, you can't set them to zipline, but you can set this to zipline. Now, I still want more. As a person, I'm always going to want more for training features, personally, but I think it's a great start. I think it's nice to have the exact movement speed of targets in front of you that are moving. I think that's fantastic, but I'm always going to want more, especially in the test range, but I think we're in the right direction, and at least I can at least applaud for that. And comment down below what more you want, and I'm excited for you guys to see the test range, just because it's like, oh, thank God we have that. You know, we should have had it a long time ago, but listen, I ain't complaining. I'm happy about it. Now, let's talk about the future of Apex Legends. I know that their intention is to have bot lobbies to get players more comfortable as they continue to play, but they won't get badges like 4K 20 bombs or anything out of that once they're out of orientation, I guess you would call it. Orientation of a player, I really appreciate what they're doing with the game. You know, you go through orientation, you have TDM, you have control mode as more of a permanent mode, and then you have the more built-out design here. You have a more built-out class system. I call this Operation Health for Apex Legends. I think Apex is in a beautiful spot going forward, but I do want to talk more real talk. So my other video, I'm going to talk a little bit more down to earth with you guys on my thoughts about Apex Legends. Not anything negative, because listen, I'm a big fan of the franchise. You know from watching my content that I'm just literally a fanboy. When you come to this channel, you know exactly what you're getting. If I wasn't a fan of this, I'd be doing something else. There's so many different ways to make money and do stuff besides just playing Apex. I like Apex. It's my hobby. It's what I love. That's why I do YouTube. It's why I make these guides. They're just fun for me, man. All right, well, anyways, I'm going to cover more of that in the next video. I think I covered as many changes here. I will timestamp everything just as a reminder. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next video.